In this video, we're going to go through the accounting transactions. First thing we're going to do is enter a new journal. If I go in here and change the journal to be a December date, so I'm going to change it to the 10th of December, what you'll notice is that the period stays the same. It stays at January 2008, and this is because the December period is closed. Also, if I change it to an earlier date, such as September, that date will stay the same. However, if I set it forward to February, then the period correctly changes to February. So what we're going to do is enter a journal for February to the 0010 nominal for £100 and also to the 0011 nominal for £100 on the credit. Okay, let's save the journal. And now the next thing that we're going to do is actually do a reversal on the journal. So I'm going to click the Save Change Date and Create Reversal button. And what this basically does is creates an exact opposite of the previous journal. So where it was debited, it's now credited, and vice versa. So what I'm now going to do is change this date to be a March date, and obviously the period changes for me when I change the March date. And I'm going to save my new journal as well. Now if I go into Find Journal, and these journals will be in the unposted journals, and they'll obviously be in a future period. So if I have a look for February and March, we can see that there's the March one and there's the February one. So I can obviously open them back up and have a look at them. Next thing I'm going to do is create a prepayment. So if I go into the prepayment wizard, okay, and then I put in the amount that I want for the prepayment. In this instance it's going to be for rent, so it's something that's happening over 12 months, and we're going to analyze this to the rent nominal. Okay, if I go next through that, we can see on the next screen that it's basically breaking up all of the payments throughout the year. And if I go next again, it will show me basically the journal that it's going to create. And if I go next again, I can print that series of journals basically on here. So it's basically showing me all of the different transactions that it's going to do. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is a bad debt provision. So new bad debt provision, launch the wizard. If I go next, I can run this for specific customers or put some sort of restriction on only show amounts that are less than a certain value, etc. I'm just going to put everything so I get a full list. Now I'm going to take one of my opening balance for my euros, and I'm going to do one of my UK customer ones. So that's invoice 3 and OB 11. Okay, if I go next, it'll show me a breakdown of what exactly it's going to do, and you'll note that this is the base value, not the foreign value for this. If I go next again, it'll basically show me what exactly it's going to do on the journal, and if I finish, it'll print out the journal that it's going to do for a bad debt provision. So it's going to write to the bad debt provision nominal and the allowance for bad debt nominal. Nothing gets posted to the customer accounts at this point. So if I now go and create another bad debt provision while that one's still in place, what we'll notice is that them invoices don't appear for provisioning because it knows that they're already on another provision. So if I go into find bad debt provision, I can find the bad debt provision that I've just done, okay, with my invoices on, and then I can reverse my bad debt provision. So that will basically reverse it out and unflag them transactions as being on a provision. So if I now create yet another bad debt provision, I should now see that them transactions are now showing back on there, so I can provision them. The next thing I'm going to do is create a write-off. So new write-off. Next, again, we've got the same options as what we had on the provision. It's basically identical at this stage. So I'm going to go next to pick them all, and I'm going to once again pick one of my my Euro transactions, or I'll pick one of my UK transactions. So if I go next, it shows me basically the values that we've got that we're going to be writing off. Quite large values there, really. So again, shows me what it's going to do, and if I finish, that will now have written the transactions to the accounts. So if I go into find write-off and find my write-off that I've just done, okay, I can obviously see the transactions. It's created IWOF 4 and 5 on my toy customer, UK and French customer. So if I drill down into the customer, and then go into transactions and ledger, the transaction that the IWOF was against will now be closed. So let's go to look at all transactions, look at my IWOF number 4, which was the one that I've just done, and if I double click on the outstanding amount, you will see that it's been set against invoice number 3, which is the one that I just wrote off. Next thing we're going to do is an EC sales list. So it's in the UK tax VAT folder, an EC sales list. I need to click the new button here. Previous ones that I've done will show in this list here. I need to click a new one to kick that off. Now I can now do a date range or a number of months. So I'm going to select months, and I'm going to do 010108. And then I should be able to produce EC sales list, and it'll show me any transactions that meet that. So I've basically got my sale there, my invoice to my French customer. So if I now want to, I can create a file, which is my EC file I can send over. And there's my file. I can obviously save that and then electronically send it. And the other thing I can do is print the report for the EC sales list, showing the values, etc. Okay, what I'm going to do now is reconcile my EC sales list. It tells me it was successful. Okay, and even after I've reconciled it, I can still create the file again. So if I close that now and go into EC sales list again, into there, it'll now show my historical one in the list, and I can open that one back up and create the file at any point. What I'm now going to do is an Intrastat reconciliation. So I'm going to do a new one, and again I can do a range of months. So I'm going to do from the 1st of this year for 1 month, and we can do arrivals and dispatches separately. So if I say produce Intrastat, that should show me the moment, because I've got arrivals, it's showing me my French supplier transactions in there. What I'm now going to do is create the file. Okay, so once again it shows me the transactions in there. I'm not going to save the file, so I'm going to come out of that without saving, and I'm now going to reconcile the Intrastat. That was successful, and then I'm going to close that form. Now if I again go into the Intrastat reconciliation, you'll see that I've now got one there. So I can double click into that, and I can create the file again, and then this time I could save it to send it over. Okay, so we're going to do a similar thing for the VAT return this time. So again, there's no history of a VAT return in there, so I'm going to just click the new button. Okay, and again I can do it for months, so I'm going to set this back to the first of the month for 1 month, and I'm going to click produce VAT return, and that will give me the figures. Now if I just go back to do this and say produce this from the 2nd month, from February, and click Produce VAT Return, it will tell me that I have unreconciled transactions as of the previous month, because we've obviously got transactions in there that are from January. So once again, I'm just going to go back to what I was doing originally and change this back to the 1st of January to make sure I get them all properly. Okay, so there's all my figures in there, and I'm going to reconcile my VAT return. Okay, that's been reconciled successful. Next thing I'm going to do is print my VAT return. This will print a few different reports. Prints one where it shows us all the different boxes. We've got this report that shows it in more summarised, and then we've got this one that shows all the boxes with the values. Okay, so we'll close that VAT return. We'll select VAT return from the menu again, and now we can see our historical VAT return, the one that we've just done. Obviously saves all the figures in there. Okay, so if I want to, I can drill down into these figures. So drill down into that, for instance, and it'll show me what transactions went into making the figures. It's basically based on all the journals. If I view box 2, it'll also have a notional rate in here for our EC purchases. Okay, what I'm going to do now is create a journal template, which is here under the Tools menu. There's no template set up already, so I need to create a new one. So I'm going to go through the wizard, and I want my template to be based on percentages, and I can put references in here if I want to. Okay, now the account codes that I want are 7004. And it's going to be 100% on the debit, and then I want 7006, which is our NI nominal, and that's going to be a 30% split on the credit, and then it's going to be 7003, which is our staff salaries, and that's going to be the remaining 70%. So both these have to come to 100% basically. So if I now go next and finish, and then just refresh the screen, then I've got my journal showing in there now, my journal template in there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is use that template to create a journal. So if I go into new journal this time, and then I'll have the option here to select my template. So I'm going to select my template. All I'm going to do is key in 1000 into the debit column, and what that will do is it will split between the 70/30 split in the others. And I'm just going to save and close on that journal. Okay, I'm now going to run the multi-currency revaluation. There's a whole page in the training document to explain what the multi-currency revaluation does, so I'm not going to repeat that here, so you can have a read of that. So historical revaluations showing here. I'm going to click the new button because I want to kick off a new revaluation. Okay, so I'm going to set the date to be 23rd of the 1st, and then click the Get Transactions button. Okay, so it shows me the transactions that are on the revaluation. So I can look at the ones for suppliers, customers, bank accounts, and the journal entries that it will create if I want to revaluate it. So now I can click the Revaluate button, so you can see the difference between the transactions on the multi-currency revaluation. So I'm just going to click Revaluate, which then prints me off the report showing exactly what we did in the various nominals, why we have to do that evaluation basically. I'm now going to run another revaluation. I'm going to close that one down. If I go back into that option or refresh the screen, we'll see that we've got our historical one there. Now I'm going to do a new revaluation, but this time I'm going to change my exchange rate. So I'm going to change my euro currency to 2, my USD to 3. Now that I've done that, I should have quite a few differences on here. So I've got a few more differences because I've just changed that. So I can see my journal here, which is going to zero the previous revaluation that we did, and then it puts the figures back on. So I'm going to reevaluate this one also. Again, we get the report, and if I refresh the screen, we'll now see that I've got 2 revaluations in there. Next thing we're going to do is the stock revaluation. If I run the stock revaluation, again, no historical ones there, so I need to click the new button to run a new one, which basically shows all of our items, etc. So if we look at an average costed item, we'll notice that the average costing method is the quantity in stock times the average cost there, which equals the total value. So we've got quantity in stock 3,000, £2, etc. If I look at the FIFO item, we have to click the little plus next to it to see what exactly that's made up of. So we have an unconfirmed and confirmed cost on our FIFO item. So if it's got a confirmed cost, it will use it, as in if we've had a bill for an item. But if we've only had the GRN for an item and we haven't yet confirmed the cost, it will use the unconfirmed cost. In this case, it's both the same, so it wouldn't make any difference. But for some items, you might get a GRN in at a different cost to what the bill actually comes in at. And if we've got a standard costed item in the list, which we should have as our bullets item, all this does is uses the standard cost times the quantity left in stock. There's a few notes in there again for the currency revaluation in the manual that you should have a read through to say exactly what it's going to do. So basically, we've got a difference here of this much, quite a large difference on here, which I think is because of the opening balance transactions, the way that they post. So if I click revaluate on here, that's basically going to create my journal. When it's finished, I can then view the journal to see the journal that's been posted to amend my my inventory control and confirm cost of goods sold. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is a batch posting. Okay, so we've already got the batch posting I did for December in there. So now that we're going to create some new batch posting to post any unposted transactions for January. So if we go into new batch posting, click next, and we're going to post all of these journals. Basically shows you what it's going to do through to the nominal. When I finish that, it's going to run the reports, show me exactly what it's done. Okay, we're now going to have a look at the chart of accounts. So if I go into the chart of accounts, there's different views we can have, but I actually want the trial balance view, and the filter will be this month against budget this month. I can amend the filter to see some of the other views that I've got. So I could see maybe year to date versus budget year to date, or period actual versus budget. There's a few different ones in there, or maybe this month versus financial year to date. Okay, we've also got an option in here to include the unposted transactions ahead of this month. So if I click that, then our figures will change because it's bringing in anything ahead of January. So even though transactions in February, March and onwards haven't been posted, we can still look at the chart of accounts as if them transactions have been posted. So if I drill down into the 4,000 nominal, which is our main sales nominal, so we can see here we've got a balance on that. If I double click it, it should take us into the account detail. Okay, so there's our account details, and I'm going to go into the budget tab for this, and we're going to amend some of the budget figures. So I'm going to enter a negative like so, and then click the icon, and it will split that amount equally over the periods. What I can also do, we created a budget split table earlier, so I can pick up my seasonal example budget split, and what that will do is it will take that figure there and basically split that evenly, well, not evenly, split it across the periods as we dictated in our seasonal example. Okay, I'm going to go back to I'm going to just save that budget in there and go back to the chart of accounts. I'm going to look at 4001 this time. I can now go into budgets, and I can copy budget details from another nominal code. So I'm going to copy my budget details from my 4001, my 4000 nominal code into my 4001. So it's a quick way of basically setting it up once and then just copying it over. I'm going to say OK to that, and now you'll see that I've got exactly the same budget details on my 4001 as I had on my 4000. I'm going to go again back to the chart of accounts and look at nominal 4002. Okay, again into the budgets tab, and this time I'm going to click the percentage allocation option here. Now we're going to put the budgeted amount per period as 200,000, and we're going to put 10% in there. If I don't put percentage, it'll take that as an amount, so you can put either in there. So if I click OK on that, what it will do is take my original figure I keyed in and uplift that by 10% across each subsequent periods. Save that again, go back to the general view in chart of accounts, and what I want to do now is look at my dangerous profit and loss. So if I change the view to be my dangerous profit and loss, and I can view details for the sales by clicking the plus next to that, and I can see the sales within there, and I can drill down again to see the sales by nominal code within that group as well. So if I go back to here and change my filter to be year to date versus budget year to date, like so, we can see the differences between our two figures, between what we've actually done year to date and what we've actually put in the budget figure. Now if I click print from this chart of accounts page, it basically does a print of whatever view you have selected at the time. So that's how we print TBs, P&Ls, balance sheets, etc. Okay, so if I go back to here, just change this back to trial balance a second. I'm going to go and have a look at the 4000 nominal again. Have a look at transaction history, and we can see all the journals that have hit this nominal. And basically we can drill down into the journal, we can drill down into the invoice, we can drill down into the customer. So we can drill down into a lot of the details from there. Now I'm going to just have a quick look at the business intelligence in here, and we can see things that are under or over our budgets, year to dates, and various other useful things that we've got in the business intelligence in the dashboard here. Okay, so we're going to now go ahead and do our month end for January. I'm just going to quickly try and just show a few of the sort of reports that you'd normally run. So we've just gone and had a look at chart of accounts and trial balance, but you'd probably run a trial balance and you probably want to print it out, so you can get a trial balance printed out like so. Also, we've already had a look, but we can also print out our dangerous profit and loss, and we can print our balance sheet for this month and year to date as well through here. I'll just have a look at the profit and loss, and then we can do our maybe we want our period this month versus financial year to date, and we can print that off. All works a similar way really. Also, we'd want a debtors and a creditors list. Now for the debtors and creditors, we'd go into customer, and we go, probably the easiest way to go is into our overall age debt, and then from there we can print our debtors off. Okay, it's exactly the same for the creditors. You can go into age creditors from the supplier menu. The other thing we'd probably want to see is unreconciled transactions on the bank. So if we go into banking, switch dashboard to reports, in reports in here we should have an unreconciled transactions by bank account report. Okay, so this is going to print that out. We've also got filter criteria here, so maybe we only want to see it for one bank. So I'll just change that to in list. I'll just say, show me the ones for bank number 1. And then I'll try and print that out. Okay, so there's our report. That's all the unreconciled transactions on bank number 1. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do now is do a month end again to take us out of January into February. So again, process month end. Now, I think I might have put a journal in since I did that batch posting, so I can't remember if I did or not. If I did, it will not let me close the period. So again, like before, we've got all the reminders in here of the things we might want to do. I'm going to go straight to close period, see we're in January, and I'm going to try and close the period. Okay, it says I'm about to do it and it's let me, so I didn't have any journals there. So now if I go finish and then go back into, I like to go into setup accounting period just to make sure it's done what it said it was going to do, and now we're in February. I have now entered some transactions for February and run the month end for February as stated in the manual. I've then just entered some transactions for March, which is the last period in our financial year. So the next thing we want to do is run the month end for March, which in turn will also run a year end. So before we would normally run the month end, we normally print off reports, etc. I'll just, in case you're not sure how to do it, show you how to run a daybook report just for a particular period. If I go into the reports dashboard for the customer module, and then I'll run a daybook for all transaction types. So I double click that. Okay, and then in the filter criteria, I can say period code, in list, and just run for my particular period, which is going to be March 2008. And then I can print that. There we go. That's all the transactions I've entered on the sales. It's just the transactions that it tells you to enter in the manual. Okay, so I can run all my other reports obviously and run them just for March. But now what I'm going to do is I want to close the month. So if I go straight to accounting and process month end, I'm going to go straight to close period. Now because I haven't done a batch posting yet, when I click the close period button, it comes up and tells me there are unposted transactions for March 2008. Do you want to batch post them? So I'm going to say yes, and that runs the batch posting wizard. So obviously forces me to do March, tells me what it's going to post, and if I finish that, it'll show me the log, show me everything that's getting posted. Okay, so now when I come back to this screen, I can now click close period again, We can see that March is the last period in our current year, so it's going to do a year end as well, and that should be March close. So if I now just go back into accounting periods, we can see that our current period is now April. Okay, so having done a year end, we should now see that we've got a brought forward balance on balance sheet codes. So if we just go and have a look at a couple of codes, so if we go into the chart of accounts and go and have a look at our 4000 code, we'll see that there's no brought forward balance, which is as expected. But if we go and have a look at another code, which is our 1100 code, for our debtors, and go into the account detail, then we'll see that we've got a brought forward balance because this is a balance sheet code. So that is basically what the year end will have done. Now let's now presume that we've had a journal from the accountant after we've done the year end has been run, and we need to post this back into the previous year. Now we can do this, and the way that we do it is by doing a prior year adjustment. So if I go into prior year adjustment, it shows any previous prior year adjustments that I've done in here. I click the new button. It basically opens a normal journal window, but it's got March's date, which is the last period in our previous year in here, and it's going to go into the March 08 period. So let's just enter a very quick journal. Okay, so if we save that journal, save and close. If I refresh the screen now, what we'll find is that we've got our journal in here, so we can always keep track of what we've got in our prior year adjustment. And what that will have done is put a brought forward balance on the 0010 nominal, or increase it if there was already a balance there. Okay, the last thing that we're going to do is have a look at the audit trail within accounting, and this is basically just showing us what's happened in here in the current period, I think, because I've got the filter set, so we can change the filter in here to look at what's happened previously. So it basically gives us knowledge of everything that's happened in here. So obviously there's not a lot going on for April.